I agree with you, but I think in this example that the brother's mentioning, let's say if it's a murabaha that's taking place, contract between between the zakat, the rights holder to the zakat.
Yeah.
He's taken the item and he's going to pay back the original selling price. But the Zakat Institute will, with his consent, I'm assuming, pay back the additional top-up price that's been agreed for the murabaha.
Yeah.
So there's not always, but there are some ways that it could work. But the thing is, when it comes to zakat, there's a lot of different ideas or concepts or innovations that can be used in how zakat can be incorporated into other means of financing.
Yeah.
So within Waqf or within microfinance and other types of products. But from our perspective, or from the Islamic Relief perspective, because our primary, as Brother Harun mentioned towards the beginning, is that we grew out of the humanitarian need. So for us, the majority of our zakat which we receive is spent in the humanitarian development.
Okay.
That's not to negate the value of other forms of zakat disbursement, but it's difficult to take on all of the different aspects or all of the other potential ways that zakat can be used. So it's best to focus on what your area of expertise is. So that's what we do when it comes to Islamic Relief worldwide and zakat. Should I give you my presentation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what I'll do is, let's just have a look at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a brief.
It'll be brief. It won't be too long, inshallah.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a brief insight into our Islamic Relief worldwide zakat policy. We'll gain some insight into how zakat is managed.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'll try and run through because it has been a while.
Yeah. You can skip this one. Yeah.
This we can
We
skip.
know already.
When it comes to zakat for Islamic Relief, as Brother Harun mentioned, we've got various family members. The majority of our zakat will come from our fundraising family members: USA, Canada, UK, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, etc. So all of these, Australia,
Zakat payer.
these are the countries where they fundraise and they receive
Okay.
zakat. Generally speaking, between a quarter to a third of our income is zakat. So between 25 to 30%, 33% is zakat. So in some countries it's higher, and some countries it's lower. So if you take UK, for example, last year, the income was about 25% zakat, the gross income of the gross income. So a quarter of the income was zakat. Now, in order for us to be able to manage that is a huge responsibility, because that's the responsibility the donors are putting their trust in us as Islamic Relief to discharge the zakat in the right way. And also, ultimately, those funds aren't ours to discharge how we please. It's the rights holders' right that has just been kept with us on a temporary basis until it reaches them.
Okay.
So we'll move on. When it comes to the zakat policy, in essence, we've got three ulama who formed the zakat advisory board. So on the left, let's see if I can get my pointer on. Okay, so this is Mufti Abdul Qadir Barakatullah. He's based in London. He's one of the members. Then we've got Sheikh Akram Nadwi. He's based in Cambridge.
Oh,
Cambridge.
Inshallah.
And then we've got Sheikh Abdullah Al-Judai, who's based in Leeds. So the zakat policy was reviewed and updated in March 2022, and we worked on it. Well, I didn't work on it, but the organization worked on it. This was before my role as a zakat advisor. These ulama, they reviewed the policy, gave feedback, and then, with consultation, along with the family members and with the fundraising offices, with the field offices, we came up with the zakat policy, which was approved in March 2022. What I'm going to just focus on, Professor and Brother Adi and Sister, is in regards to the rights holders, and then just some information on management and the zakat eligibility when it comes to budgets. So briefly speaking, when it comes to the rights holders, the rights holder needs to be vulnerable and they need to be Muslim in order to be eligible for zakat.
Right.
Which means that on the other side, if they're not meeting both of those criteria, automatically they will be zakat non-eligible. But what we need to understand is Islamic Relief as a humanitarian organization, as a development organization, we work with communities regardless of their background, faith background, or otherwise. We work primarily based on need. So when it comes to zakat, we need to understand that zakat is a religious obligation with set parameters. So this restriction in regards to where zakat can and can't be used isn't something that we've applied. It's something that exists both from the donor side and from the Islamic law. So non-eligible communities, households and rights holders, they can, should and are served. So we work in countries where you have mixed populations, Malawi, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, all of the countries really. There's no country where you have 100% of population of one community. All of the countries have a mixed population.
Yes.
Maybe with one or two exceptions. There's only one that I can think of specifically. But the majority of countries is always going to be a mix of populations. So we do serve non-eligible zakat communities. But the only thing is when the funding for that aspect of the project, it will be sourced from non-zakat funds.
Yes.
So that's to make sure that we're complying with the community's
Sharia compliance.
expectation.
Yeah.
So there's sadaqah. Like I said, if a quarter of our income is zakat, that means 3/4 is either sadaqah or institutional funding or any other type of non-zakat funds.
Right.
But what's interesting is that we do emphasize that there's no discernible difference. So whether one household has received zakat funding or the household has received non-zakat, no one gets a better quality or a worse quality. They're all on the same. Everyone gets the same service. Everyone gets the same quality. There's no difference in the service. So Islamic Relief worldwide does not discriminate based on gender, religion, creed, or any other factor.
Asnaf, this is okay.
So these are the asnaf.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're familiar with them. The fuqara, masakin, amilin alayha. We'll go through them just very briefly. The majority of our rights holders are the fuqara and the masakin.
Yeah.
And then you've got the nisab. They don't exceed the nisab value. They don't possess wealth equal to the nisab for them to be eligible. Amilina alayha, you were mentioning Islamic Relief Worldwide.
Yeah.
So with Islamic Relief Worldwide, we class ourselves as an amil when it comes to zakat.
Yeah.
But we've capped, and this is something quite unique to Islamic Relief, is when it comes to the transparency, when it comes to zakat utilization or using zakat for our own administration or implementation of the project. And the key point with us is that we cap at a maximum 12.5% of zakat for us to be using as a
amil portion,
as the administrators. And interestingly, I know Indonesia, Malaysia, you have strong Shafi'i ulama, they have a strong Shafi'i background. We took this from the Shafi'i madhab. So I think one of the opinions of Imam Shafi'i is that the zakat should be split equally between the 8 categories. And obviously 12.5% is 1/8. So that's the maximum that we can use zakat for our own implementation. The fourth category is mu'allafati qulubuhum. We don't use zakat for this because as an organization, we don't engage in preaching or utilizing funds to bring people to religion. So we don't use zakat for this.
Infaq, sadaqah.
The fourth is emancipation of slaves. So for riqab, interestingly, the way that we've used this with our policy, as it's been approved, is that it can be used for forms of modern slavery. So if you have people who have been trafficked, or you have in some parts of South Asia, in interior Sindh or in Pakistan or in Bangladesh, you have people who are still bonded to the land. It's called bonded labor. So we can use zakat to kind of uplift those people out of poverty.
Can or cannot?
We can.
Can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because even if they're not, someone might disagree and say, they're modern slavery, but they're not the slavery that's mentioned in the Quran. They'll still come under the fuqara and the masakin. So obviously, with some of the asnaf, with some of the mustahiqeen, they'll fall into multiple categories.
Right.
So you could be in debt and be a faqir as well, or you could be in one of the others. Coming on to those in debt. So primarily, we use zakat for those who are in debt. It can be used to clear their debt. There's some criteria. So what we look for is that those rights holders whose debt is due immediately. It's not someone who has a mortgage for 25 years and he says, give me zakat to clear my mortgage. No, it's someone whose debt is immediate and they're not able to cover the necessities of their existence. We also can use zakat for microfinance, but in a slightly nuanced way. The nuance being, Dr. Crescent mentioned that with the Qard Hasana, for example, we give it with the planning as part of the project that if that payment can't be repaid, it can be absorbed by the organization. So microfinance, we don't give zakat as the initial capital for the relationship with the client. But if the client finds themselves in a situation where they can't repay, then we could consider using zakat to write off the debt. I think particularly this was applicable, during COVID times when they had lockdowns. So some microfinance, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Dr. Hayes, but some microfinance clients, maybe they had a small carpentry workshop or a small corner shop, and they purchased the stock through Murabaha, or they had a Qard Hasan for, machinery for the workshop. Then the COVID struck, everything had to be closed down and they had no income. So in that case, because that situation was out of their control, and it wasn't a case that they had defaulted on their payments out of mischievousness or trickery, there was a justification for using zakat to clear off their microfinance debt. So it didn't prevent them for a further cycle of assistance or relationship. Interestingly, Ibn Sabil, so what we take with our policy is Ibn Sabil, many of the humanitarian projects that we do, they work with refugees and IDPs, so internally displaced people.
Yeah.
The key here is that these people need to be cut off from their wealth. So even though they may be wealthy in their home city, or they have wealth in their home country, if they're cut off from their wealth in that emergency situation, then we can assist them with zakat. So I think that should be clear, inshallah.
Yeah.
And then the last one is under the Fi Sabilillah category. This is where we use zakat for communal welfare or community projects, which I will discuss here. So as I mentioned, when it comes to projects, there's two types. One, you might have a project where you're distributing individual aid. So the food pack, the mattress, the blanket, or you're refurbishing their house. It's something that you can say, Professor Aditya has given his zakat to Adil, and this is how it's been done. Then there's another form where we're not giving a specific item to one house, we're giving it to the community as a whole. So that's when you're stocking a hospital, or you're building a school,
for public,
or you're refurbishing
infrastructure,
water system or infrastructure. Those items we can use, we do use zakat for, but with certain conditions. So those ones we're using under the Fi Sabilillah category. So they come under the Fi Sabilillah category, and that's because this is an opinion that's taken hold with some modern Hanbali ulama, and also with some nuance from the other schools. We can justify the usage of zakat in this type of activity. In essence, when it comes to our policy, for us to use zakat in that communal project, we need to have a needs assessment. From that, we need to establish that the clear majority of the community is zakat eligible. Not 100%, but the clear majority. You need the consent from the community that they're happy for us to use zakat in this manner. And then the fourth one is that there needs to be a clear exit strategy. So if you've built the school, or you've replenished the medical clinic, it shouldn't be that those items are then sold on the market after the project ends, or the school becomes the property of the local governor. It needs to remain for the community, so we have a clear exit strategy. What's going to happen with these assets after we have ended our intervention? Some examples are health projects, WASH, which is water and sanitation, water, sanitation and hygiene, and then livelihoods as well. Again, just some more examples where we've used zakat is clean water sources, health clinics. A lot of the health clinics and critical medical equipment, that's in places like Syria and Jordan. The water ones, many of them were Bangladesh and Pakistan because of flooding. Seed banks, I think, was East Africa. And schools, this was in Gaza before the current crisis. But we these are some examples where we use zakat on the community level. Okay. And also some of the essential service providers. So if we're employing doctors or bakers or engineers or teachers or trainers to deliver the aid to the rights holder, then we can use zakat for them as well. That's just to give you an idea. At the basis, in essence, everyone that we serve will be the fuqara and the masakin.
Yes, yes.
On top of that, the Ibn Sabil, practically, if they still have wealth, but they're cut off from it, practically they'll be from the fuqara and the masakin.
Right.
And the Fi Sabilillah, which is the top of the pyramid, those community projects, it's built on either the IDP camp, refugee camp, or the those communities where there's high levels of poverty.
Yeah.
Okay. In regards to zakat management, so from the income side, I think we just had a brief discussion previously.
Yeah.
It's tagged. So finance from each of the family members, USA, Canada, USA, etc. They know when the person's made the donation that, oh, this is zakat, or this is sadaqah, or this is waqf, whatever the funding is that they've given, or they've not specified, then we can say it's a general allocation. From my perspective, one of the things that I'm focusing on at the moment is when it comes to zakat training. So this zakat policy, and this I think something is really unique with Islamic Relief, the level of detail that we go into and the thoroughness that we're attempting when it comes to zakat management is very high. So at the moment, I'm conducting zakat trainings, individual trainings with our colleagues across the field offices, which will basically be practical training. We assess each project that is being funded through zakat will be assessed. So you have 30 countries, just under 30 countries, I think there's 28 or 26. Each country that has a zakat project, that budget will be assessed. Our budgets are not simple. You have a budget line for everything. It's very detailed. They are in good, strong detail. So in essence, what will happen is when the country office, i.e. the country that's going to implement the project, they'll design the project and then they'll conduct a zakat assessment. We think this is the zakat value of the project. Then they'll share it with me and I'll conduct the final assessment and do the sign off. This is how much we think zakat can be used. So this is what I'm talking about. We do, in essence, a line-by-line analysis. And the key thing with this is when it comes to a project, no project will be 100% zakat eligible. So let's say we've designed a project for 150,000. That project will have some aspects which we won't use zakat for. So as an example, if we're taking photographs, we'll budget in that, this is how much it takes for the photographs. Or you produce a banner, like the banners that you have to show that this is your project. Those things, we do those, one, to report back to the donor, but also for documentation or evidence as to the project being implemented, as an awareness for the community as well, what's happening. But we wouldn't consider those kind of activities to be zakat eligible. When we produce videos for a project, there's other aspects of a project that we have to include as part of, Brother Harun mentioned, the CHS community core humanitarian standards. In order for us to meet those core humanitarian standards, there's a lot of monitoring, evaluation, learning, best practice,
which cannot be used,
which we have to do in order to achieve that qualification. But those are best practice. We're not going to use zakat to start plugging the best practice. We're going to use zakat for its asl. So those kind of activities we don't use zakat for, but we still include them in the project. So this is what I'm talking about. When it comes to the budgets, we have to assess line by line. This is going to be zakat funded. This is not going to be zakat funded, and this is in the middle. And one of the key things that we do is we identify this zakat admin. As I mentioned, 12.5% we can use as Islamic Relief, but we identify that's zakat eligible, but we identify it separately so that we don't go over the 12.5%. Because if you included that zakat, the project officer who's working on the project, we can use zakat for him, but it will be from our 12.5%. So we don't start including him. Basically the essence of zakat that goes to the rights holder is what they're receiving, the training that they're receiving, or if we're distributing this asset to the rights holder, the cost of getting that to the rights holder we'd use zakat for. But the cost of me monitoring it will be our charge. We're not going to charge that to the rights holder. That's going to be our charge. It's very nuanced. And I've had discussions with various zakat administrators, Jordan, Pakistan, Malaysia as well. But the level that we're going into is quite, it's very thorough. So alhamdulillah, it's a good effort that's taking place within the organization. And we have experts that we're training up in all of the country offices to be able to conduct this kind of level of zakat assessment, and then they can sign off. At the moment, the responsibility is with me.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
alhamdulillah, I think that's the end of my little zakat
Yes.
spiel.
Very nice presentations.
Many aspects, but I think because of
Time, yeah.
time, I cannot ask all of the aspects. So one important thing that I highlighted is about what is it? The range of products that you provide for SMEs in terms of microfinance. So I want to learn, and also I'm curious how you resolve or deal with the challenge. I mean, when in Indonesia we have many microfinance institutions, especially in rural area, but the utilization of this institution is very limited because of the competition with non-Islamic microfinance providers.
Which maybe are
Loan
more
shark.
competitive, or they're more.
They are cheaper in terms of the cost and benefit. They are cheaper, but since microfinance institution is a new institution, they have some limitation in terms of competitions. So how do you deal with that? Because the consumer or the community will go to this non-Islamic microfinance institution. So what do you think about that?
I mean, in general, obviously, in most sort of Muslim markets, consumers are sort of split into three kind of groups, right? There is one group, let's say, who are religiously observant. They will accept any product as long as it's labeled and verified by them in their own ways as Sharia compliant, right?
Yeah.
They will pay over the odds. They will accept a poor customer service as long as it's Sharia compliant, right? The second third will focus on Sharia compliant, but expects and will also therefore compromise, will expect it to be competitively priced and also have a really good customer service. And if not, they might actually go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the third segment will not actually worry too much about Sharia compliance. They will look particularly at price and customer service. And of course, that is under the proviso that there is obviously, and Indonesia is a different country from many other countries in the Muslim world, obviously, that there are actually Islamic financial services available to people in all corners of a country. In most countries that we work in, where we provide Islamic microfinance, we do not actually find a lot of service providers that offer Sharia compliant financial services, and therefore, some of these issues are not a problem for us. The other issue, obviously, is, as I said in my presentation, that we are not a commercial provider of financial services. Of course, as you know, a bank ultimately, obviously, on lends, right? It borrows from the central bank or has shareholders that are providing the working capital. It will, sell that money to its customers and will charge a margin on top of that, right? And then pass back the profits to their shareholders or, the central bank in this case, right? Now, for us, obviously, our profit is always free of our capital is always free of cost, right? Because it's sadaqah, it's not zakat, right? It's sadaqah or a different type of donation that we get from microfinance. Therefore, we're not actually in that difficult position that, of course, a lot of Islamic finance companies are in or providers are in that are, as you said, still relatively new, haven't got economies of scale, and therefore have to first of all pay for capital, and then also have to pay
Return.
more for their operating expenses
Yeah.
because they're just not big enough. Plus, of course, Sharia compliance adds another layer of cost, to what Islamic financial service providers, of course, have to pay on top of what conventional service providers have to pay. So, it's a really deep dilemma, because the Muslim consumer or the consumer in Muslim countries, right, doesn't always play by the same rules. Not every Muslim
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
wants Islamic financial services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And therefore, of course, struggling to create the kind of economies of scale. Indonesia is a little bit different. I don't know that much about it, but it's a little bit different because you have a very large market. You do have quite well-established Islamic financial institutions. In many countries that we work in, for example, West Africa, now, or we mentioned Russia, the Russian Federation. We are now still up to today the only provider of Islamic microfinance in the whole of the Russian Federation.
Wow.
There's over 3,000 microfinance institutions in Russia, and only the one that we found
Islamic.
is Sharia compliant.
Wow.
Okay, and we have, especially in the southern, in the Caucasus areas, you have millions of Muslims, right? So we are a very small player, in still a large market, and we're the only one who's providing
Wow.
Islamic financial services
I
there.
think globally, Islamic microfinance potential is so huge. It's like it's like it's like one voice is crying out in the wind with Islamic microfinance. The need for that is so great across the ummah, but competition from conventional banking system and mechanisms
much more.
is very tough to break
Yeah.
through. Plus, there's the mindset as well. Many people, if you can find that, if they think that they're getting a cheaper product, whether it's halal or haram,
They'll get
it
it.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it's a cheaper product, I'll go with this. So there's a social and the social and mental growth that needs to take place within the communities for them to understand the significance and the worth of it.
But once people see it, I was in Pakistan and I spoke with Christians there because you said, not every country, even Pakistan, the Islamic country, Pakistan, right, has also a Christian minority.
Waalaikumsalam. Assalamualaikum.
Saya Anja,
Raditya, Pak.
Profesor. Masya Allah.
Ini, Pak.
Oh, saya tak ambil dulu, Pak.
Iya, iya.
Ambil dulu lagi.
Let me just close this one.